The Galactic Council's proclamation echoed through what remained of humanity's communication systems. Earth is hereby declared a toxic, uninhabitable zone. All interstellar vessels are prohibited from approach or landing. All aid and trade embargoes are now permanent. Humanity has been removed from the Protected Species Registry. And with that, Earth was abandoned to die. Evelyn Kane heard the news as she always did these days, crouched beside a salvaged quantum receiver in the underground bunker she called home, surrounded by 37 other survivors who looked to her for guidance, for hope. Her fingers tightened around the small metal device until her knuckles turned white. "So that's it then," muttered Tariq, their communications specialist. "They've given up on us completely." Evelyn stood, brushing the ever-present dust from her worn coveralls. At 36, she carried herself with the weary determination of someone who had seen the end of the world but refused to accept it as final. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical braid, and her eyes, sharp, analytical, and fiercely intelligent, surveyed the room of downcast faces. "No," she said firmly, "they've given up on us. We haven't given up on ourselves." Outside their reinforced bunker, Earth bore little resemblance to the planet it had once been. The skies were perpetually gray-brown, churning with toxic clouds that periodically unleashed acid rain strong enough to strip paint from metal. The once great cities stood as skeletal monuments to human achievement and folly. Wildlife had mutated, adapting to survival in ways both terrifying and fascinating to Evelyn's trained eye as an exobiologist. The collapse had come not as one catastrophe, but as a cascade. Climate breakdown triggering resource wars, which led to limited nuclear exchanges, which in turn created perfect conditions for engineered bioweapons to escape containment. By the time the first alien delegation arrived offering assistance, Earth was already a patchwork of dead zones, with only a few billion humans clinging to existence in isolated pockets. For a time, there had been hope. The Galactic Council, a federation of 17 spacefaring civilizations, had extended conditional aid. But Earth's problems proved too complex, the political will too weak, and humanity too fractured to meet the Council's demands for unified governance and environmental protocols. After a decade of diminishing support, the aliens had withdrawn, taking with them most of Earth's remaining elites and leaving the rest to whatever fate awaited a dying world. That had been 8 years ago. Now, even the pretense of eventual return or restoration was gone. Evelyn moved through the cramped living quarters of their bunker, a repurposed mining facility buried beneath what had once been the Rocky Mountains. The space was utilitarian but made habitable through ingenious adaptations. Hydroponic gardens thrived under spectrum-engineered lights. Recycled water flowed through systems that Evelyn herself had designed based on technologies glimpsed during the brief alien intervention. This place, this pocket of determined survival, existed because Evelyn had refused to accept extinction. When her parents and younger brother had died during the great drought that preceded the final collapse, she had channeled grief into action, using her background in exobiology to pioneer adaptation techniques. Her life's work became understanding how life, both terrestrial and alien, adapted to extreme environments. "What do we do now?" asked May, their resident doctor and one of the few who remembered life before the collapse with any clarity. Evelyn paused by the main hydroponics bay, gently touching a tomato plant that should never have been able to grow in such conditions. "We do what we've always done. We survive. We adapt. We look for solutions others have missed." In the privacy of her small quarters that night, Evelyn reviewed her most precious possession, a digital archive of research she had compiled over 15 years. It contained everything from pre-collapse climate studies to her own field observations of mutated ecosystems to fragmented data on alien biotechnology she had managed to salvage or steal during the intervention period. Something had been forming in her mind for months now, a pattern in the data that suggested Earth's condition might not be as irreversible as the Galactic Council claimed. The aliens had assessed Earth by their own standards of habitability, which didn't account for the remarkable adaptability of terrestrial life. More importantly, she suspected they had deliberately overlooked something. They wanted an excuse to abandon us, she murmured to herself as she overlaid geological survey maps with radiation distribution patterns. The question is, why? 3 days later, Evelyn stood before the community's leadership council, 5 individuals selected by consensus to make decisions when collective action was required. "I need to take an expedition to the ruins of Denver," she stated flatly. Xavier, who managed their security, immediately shook his head. "The entire Front Range Basin is a death zone. Evelyn, radiation, toxins, predators. Nothing comes back from there. I've been analyzing weather patterns and radiation readings from our remote sensors. There's a 3-day window coming where conditions will be survivable with proper protection, and I believe there's something there we need." "What exactly?" asked Sophia, their resource manager, her skepticism evident. Evelyn hesitated. Her theory was still forming, based on anomalies in sensor readings and fragments of alien data she'd decoded. "I believe there may be alien technology left behind, intentionally abandoned or hidden, near the old Denver Science Center. The radiation patterns there don't match natural dispersion models. Something is generating an interference field." Layla, the oldest member of the council, leaned forward. "You think the aliens left something that could help us? Why would they do that after quarantining us?" "I don't think it was this council," Evelyn clarified. "The geological positioning suggests it's been there for much longer, possibly from a previous extraterrestrial contact event, one predating official first contact." The room fell silent at the implication. The existence of earlier alien visitors had been theorized but never confirmed. "This is why you've been requesting the deep archive files from before the collapse," Tarek realized aloud. Evelyn nodded. There were archaeological anomalies documented in that region, findings that were classified and then seemingly disappeared from records just before everything fell apart. "I believe whatever is there might help us understand why Earth was really abandoned." After hours of debate, the council approved a limited expedition: Evelyn, Xavier for security, and May for medical support. What they didn't know was that Evelyn had already made preparations to go alone if necessary, some risks she wouldn't ask others to take. The journey to Denver would require traversing 80 miles of hazardous terrain, through mutated forests, across unstable ground, and past the territories of both hostile human outposts and predators that had adapted all too well to the new Earth. As Evelyn packed specialized equipment, including a radiation suit modified with alien-derived shielding technology, she found herself remembering Earth as it had been, the mountains crisp against blue skies, the taste of rain that didn't burn skin, the simple miracle of breathing unfiltered air. Sometimes these memories felt like they belonged to someone else, a different Evelyn from a different timeline. "I was never much of a naturalist before," she told May as they prepared medical supplies. "Ironic that I became one after nature, as we knew it was mostly destroyed." May handed her a package of synthetic antibiotics. "Sometimes we only value things when we're at risk of losing them forever." "Or after they're gone," Evelyn added softly. The expedition departed at dawn, passing through the bunker's elaborate decontamination chamber and airlock system. The outside world greeted them with its usual hostility, a sky like bruised flesh, winds that carried caustic particles, and a landscape transformed by catastrophe. Where forests had once stood, twisted groves of mutated trees now reached toward the sky with branch structures that seemed almost deliberate in their complexity. Lichens in impossible colors clung to ruins, breaking down concrete and metal with evolved digestive enzymes. To Evelyn's trained eye, it wasn't all destruction, it was adaptation, life finding new pathways forward in conditions that should have been impossible. This had become her specialization during her academic career, understanding how biology responded to extreme stressors. Now Earth itself was her laboratory. They traveled cautiously, avoiding open spaces and keeping to the shadows of ruins when possible. Xavier led with a modified pulse rifle, effective against both human threats and the larger predators that had emerged in recent years. May monitored their exposure levels with grim attention to detail. Evelyn navigated, her eyes constantly shifting between their route and the surrounding environment, collecting observations. "Look there," she said on the second day, pointing to what appeared to be ordinary rubble until you noticed the perfect geometrical arrangement. "That's not random collapse. Something organized those stones." Xavier frowned. "Survivors. Not human ones," Evelyn replied quietly. "The pattern matches formicide problem-solving algorithms, but scaled up enormously." "Ants?" May looked skeptical. "Their descendants evolved after exposure to mutagenic compounds. There have been reports of colony structures the size of buildings from the Eastern Territories. They gave the formation a wide berth." By sunset on the second day, the Denver ruins rose before them, a jagged skyline of partial skyscrapers and collapsed infrastructure. Once a vibrant city of over 3 million, now a silent monument to human hubris. Their Geiger counters clicked with increasing urgency as they approached. "We'll need to move quickly," Evelyn said, checking her instruments. "Radiation levels will rise sharply after midnight when the wind patterns shift." They made camp in the hollowed-out remains of a suburban shopping center, setting up portable shields against both radiation and detection. As Xavier took first watch, Evelyn reviewed her maps and notes. "What exactly are we looking for?" May asked, applying a regenerative compound to a small radiation burn on her wrist. "The alien records I accessed mentioned a dormancy installation in this region, though the translation is imprecise, whatever it is. It's generating subtle energy signatures that our sensors can barely detect." "And you think it can help Earth?" Evelyn hesitated. "I think it was left here deliberately by someone who believed humanity might need it someday." Morning brought them deeper into the ruins. The science center was largely collapsed, but Evelyn's instruments led them to a substructure beneath the main building, a facility that didn't appear on any official blueprints she had accessed. "This wasn't part of the original construction," she murmured as they cut through a sealed door with laser tools. "The alloys aren't terrestrial." Beyond the door lay a corridor untouched by the ravages above. Lights, dim but functional, activated as they moved forward, responding to their presence. The walls were covered in markings that resembled no human language, but triggered recognition in Evelyn's memory from fragments of data she'd studied. "This is predecessor script," she breathed, running her fingers over the engravings. The Galactic Council's historical records mentioned them, a species that seeded technologies throughout the galaxy and then vanished millions of years ago. The corridor led to a circular chamber dominated by a device unlike anything Evelyn had ever seen, a crystalline structure that seemed to phase between solid and energy, pulsing with a blue-green light that cast eerie shadows across their faces. "What is it?" Xavier asked, keeping his weapon ready. Evelyn approached slowly, her instruments recording everything. "I believe it's a terraforming catalyst, or at least, that was its original purpose." The device responded to her proximity, the light intensifying. A holographic interface shimmered into existence, glyphs and symbols hovering in the air. "Can you read it?" May asked. "Not directly, but—" Evelyn removed a small translator device from her pack, another piece of salvaged alien technology she had modified. "I can approximate some concepts." As she worked to decipher the interface, the ground suddenly trembled beneath them. Xavier moved to the entrance, scanning for threats. "We've got company," he reported tensely. "Orbital scanner signatures, Galactic Council enforcement vessels." Evelyn's heart raced. "They must have detected the energy signature when the device activated. We need more time." The translation was forming on her screen, fragmented but increasingly clear. "Restoration protocol. Requires genetic verification. Indigenous species. Bioresonance key." "They're landing," Xavier called. Multiple signatures. Heavy enforcement class. Evelyn's mind raced. The device needed a bioresonance key from an indigenous species. It needed human DNA to activate. But what would it do once activated? The translation was still processing, but she had minutes at most to decide. "Evelyn," May said urgently, "we need to go, now." But Evelyn had come too far to retreat. Earth was dying. Humanity was abandoned. What did they have to lose? She pressed her palm against the central crystal. Pain shot through her arm as the device extracted blood through suddenly manifested microscopic needles. The blue-green light pulsed, then changed to a deep amber. The chamber began to hum with increasing intensity. The holographic display expanded, filling the room with cascading symbols and images of Earth, first as it had been before the collapse, then as it was now, then shifting to something new. "It's a planetary systems modeling program," Evelyn realized aloud, watching the simulation unfold. "It's analyzing Earth's current condition and calculating intervention protocols." Heavy footsteps echoed from the corridor, the distinctive sound of Galactic Council enforcement units. Xavier took position at the entrance, but Evelyn knew their weapons would be useless against Council technology. "Dr. May, help me understand what this is showing," Evelyn called, gesturing to the expanding simulation. "Those look like atmospheric composition projections." May joined her, eyes widening as she interpreted the data. "It's showing atmospheric cleansing pathways, breaking down toxins, rebalancing gases, creating catalytic reactions that could neutralize radiation. Evelyn, this could actually work." The first enforcer appeared at the chamber entrance, a towering figure in sealed armor bearing the insignia of the Galactic Council Quarantine Division. Xavier's weapon discharged, the energy pulse dissipating harmlessly against advanced shielding. "Step away from the predecessor technology," the enforcer commanded, its voice translator rendering the words in flat, emotionless English. "This facility is under Council jurisdiction by Quarantine Protocol 793. More enforcers appeared behind the first, weapons trained on the humans. Evelyn remained at the console, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface as the translation program continued to decipher its functions. "This technology was left here for us," she called out, not looking up from her work. "By a species that came before your council existed. The predecessor artifacts are subject to council protection and study," the lead enforcer replied. "Unauthorized activation by quarantined species is prohibited." May stepped forward, placing herself between the enforcers and Evelyn. Why was Earth really abandoned? The environmental damage, while severe, isn't beyond repair with your technology. What aren't you telling us? The enforcer hesitated, just slightly, but enough for Evelyn to notice. There was something here beyond standard protocol. "Final warning," the enforcer stated. "Step away, or we will remove you by force." Evelyn had found what she needed in the interface. The activation sequence was nearly complete, requiring only final confirmation. Her finger hovered over the glowing symbol. "What are you afraid this device will reveal?" she challenged, looking directly at the lead enforcer. "That Earth could have been saved? That the Council abandoned us for other reasons?" Before the enforcer could respond, the chamber was suddenly bathed in crimson light. Warning symbols flashed across the holographic display. The device had detected an attempt to override its systems remotely. "They're trying to shut it down," Evelyn realized. She made her decision and pressed the activation symbol. The crystal core of the device pulsed with blinding intensity. Energy surged outward in concentric waves, passing through walls and bodies alike. The enforcers staggered back, their systems momentarily disrupted. "What did you do?" Xavier called out, using the distraction to move back toward Evelyn and May. "I think..." Evelyn watched as new holographic projections filled the air. Earth's geological systems, biosphere, atmosphere, all highlighted with spreading networks of light that resembled neural pathways. "I think I just woke up the planet," The lead enforcer recovered first, advancing with weapon raised. You have no idea what you've activated. This goes beyond restoration. This technology was quarantined for a reason. The ground beneath them trembled again, but differently this time. Not from orbital vessels, but from something deeper, something awakening in the Earth itself. The holographic display shifted again, coalescing into a humanoid form composed of light and data. Genetic verification confirmed. It stated in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Indigenous species status. Endangered but viable. Initiating planetary guardian protocols. The enforcers froze, weapons still raised but not firing. Predecessor AI, the lead enforcer said. A new note in its voice that the translator rendered as something close to awe or fear. The holographic entity regarded them all with impassive attention. This world was seeded with restoration capabilities 47 million years ago, to be activated when the dominant indigenous species reached sufficient advancement to face existential crisis. Evaluation of current planetary status, critical but recoverable. It turned its attention to the enforcers. Galactic Council presence noted. Query: why was recovery protocol not initiated by Council authorities? The lead enforcer lowered its weapon slowly. The Council determined Earth to be beyond standard restoration parameters. The contamination risks. False. The AI interrupted. Analysis of Council decision matrices indicates alternate motivation. Dominant factor. Earth contains the largest accessible concentration of predecessor technology in this sector. Quarantine provides exclusive access without indigenous interference. Evelyn's breath caught. You abandoned us to claim alien technology for yourselves. Billions died. The Council's primary mandate is galactic stability, the enforcer replied stiffly. Predecessor technology in the hands of an unstable, aggressive species was deemed an unacceptable risk. The AI's form pulsed. Initiating judgment protocol, all present entities to be evaluated for determination of planetary stewardship rights. A new energy field encompassed the chamber, connecting all present, human and enforcer alike, to the central device. Evelyn felt a strange sensation, as if her thoughts and memories were being gently sifted through. This is a predecessor ethics evaluation, the lead enforcer said, now clearly alarmed. Council authority does not recognize. Council authority is derived from predecessor law, the AI stated. This installation predates Council formation. Original protocols apply. For several minutes, no one could move as the evaluation continued. Evelyn experienced flashes of memory, her parents' deaths, her work to save others, moments of despair and hope, all examined in an instant. Finally, the energy field receded. The AI's form shifted, becoming more defined. Evaluation complete. Results. Council representatives demonstrate prioritization of political expediency over life preservation. Human subjects demonstrate persistence, adaptation, and compassion despite extreme adversity. It paused. Stewardship rights are awarded to indigenous species with conditional oversight. The lead enforcer stepped forward. The Council will not recognize this judgment. Earth remains under quarantine by Council decree. Incorrect, the AI replied. Planetary defense systems are now active. Council vessels in orbit have been neutralized. Communication has been dispatched to Council Central Authority, with full documentation of ethics violations and covert technology appropriation. Evelyn could hardly process what was happening. Defense systems? What defense systems? The holographic display shifted again, showing the planet's surface with thousands of points of light activating across continents and ocean floors, previously dormant predecessor installations coming online in a coordinated network. Earth was designated a predecessor sanctuary world, the AI explained. One of 17 seeded with complete restoration and defense capabilities, to be activated only in extreme circumstances. The indigenous species must survive to maintain the activation. Outside the chamber, beyond the ruins of Denver, Something was already changing. The air seemed clearer, the perpetual toxic haze thinning visibly. Readings on Evelyn's instruments showed radiation levels dropping rapidly as unknown processes neutralized contaminants. "This will take time," the AI continued. "Full restoration requires approximately 7 years. During this period, human population must be protected and allowed to recover." The enforcers conferred among themselves, clearly receiving new instructions from whatever remained of their orbital command. Finally, the lead enforcer addressed Evelyn directly. "The Council will be reassessing Earth's status. We will withdraw pending further diplomatic communication." The words seemed forced, extracted under duress. After the enforcers departed, Evelyn, Xavier, and May stood in stunned silence before the holographic AI. "What happens now?" Evelyn finally asked. "Restoration proceeds," the AI replied. "This installation will coordinate global systems. Human cooperation is requested but not required. Recommend establishing communication network with other human enclaves to facilitate adaptation to changing conditions." May looked at her instruments in disbelief. "The toxin levels are already down 20%. How is this possible?" "Predecessor environmental engineering exceeds Council technology by approximately 12,000 years of development," the AI stated matter-of-factly. "Current Council capabilities were largely reverse-engineered from discovered predecessor artifacts." Evelyn's mind raced with implications. Are there other humans who know about this technology, who might have been working with the Council? "Affirmative. Detection indicates 3 human enclaves have Council communication technology. Classification: collaborators." Xavier frowned. "The Northern Alliance. They've always had better tech than anyone else since the collapse. We assumed they just salvaged more during the evacuation." "They sold us out," Evelyn realized. "They helped the Council maintain the quarantine in exchange for technology. That would explain why their territories were never targeted by Council enforcement when other groups who approached the ruins were eliminated." May added. The journey back to their bunker was dramatically different from their departure. The sky began to clear, patches of actual blue visible for the first time in years. Sensors showed toxin levels dropping hourly. Most remarkable were the plants, dormant seeds awakening from the soil, growing visibly as they passed. "The predecessor technology isn't just cleaning," Evelyn observed, kneeling to examine a rapidly growing sapling. "It's accelerating natural recovery processes. Look at the cellular structure. It's being reinforced against remaining toxins." By the time they reached their community, word had already spread. Other bunkers and enclaves were reporting the same phenomena. The Northern Alliance had gone silent, their leadership reportedly fleeing aboard the last Council vessels. 3 months later, Evelyn stood on a hillside overlooking a valley that had been dead earth just weeks before. Now it flourished with new growth. Plants that resembled pre-collapse species but with subtle adaptations for the changed Earth. The sky above was nearly clear, the air quality approaching pre-industrial levels. Communications had been established with over 200 human enclaves worldwide, coordinating recovery efforts. The predecessor AI, which humans had taken to calling Guardian, provided guidance but insisted that humans make their own decisions about governance and society. "We have a chance to rebuild differently," Evelyn told the assembled representatives from neighboring communities. "Not to recreate what failed before, but to establish something better, something in balance with this new Earth." Some days, the magnitude of what had happened still overwhelmed her. Earth, given up for dead, abandoned by the galaxy, was healing itself through technology left by a species that had anticipated this need millions of years ago. The Galactic Council had been forced into negotiations, their duplicity exposed across multiple worlds. Other species had reached out, offering direct aid now that the quarantine was lifted. Earth was no longer alone. "You should rest," May told her one evening, finding Evelyn still working in the new research facility they had established near the predecessor installation. You've been at this for 20 hours straight. Evelyn smiled tiredly, gesturing to the biological samples she was analyzing. Do you realize what we've been given? Not just Earth's restoration, but access to technology that could help us avoid the same mistakes. The predecessors didn't just leave us a reset button, they left us a roadmap. And you're determined to understand every inch of it. May observed with a mixture of admiration and concern. Someone has to. The Guardian has made it clear that how we use this second chance is entirely up to us. 2 years after the activation, the changes were nothing short of miraculous. Major population centers had been re-established, with new cities designed to work with rather than against natural systems. The mutated ecosystems had been guided rather than replaced, creating hybrid biomes that maintained Earth's new adaptations while restoring crucial balance. Evelyn had become Earth's de facto ambassador to the galaxy, though she rejected formal titles. When the first official diplomatic vessel from the reformed Galactic Council landed, she was there to meet it, not as a supplicant, but as the representative of a world that had earned its place among the stars through resilience and the capacity for change. Earth was never truly uninhabitable, she explained to the assembled alien diplomats as they toured a restoration zone. It was just changing into something you didn't understand, something that required a different definition of habitation. The lead diplomat, a Centaurian biologist with an exoskeleton that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns, regarded her thoughtfully. Many council species believed humanity would not survive the abandonment. They underestimated your adaptability. That seems to be a common mistake, Evelyn replied with a slight smile. As the diplomats continued their tour, Evelyn found a moment alone on a cliff edge overlooking what had once been a toxic wasteland and was now a thriving forest. In the distance, the gleaming spires of a new city rose, one built with predecessor-inspired technology that grew rather than consumed. The Guardian AI manifested beside her, its holographic form now familiar after countless hours of collaboration. The Council representatives are concerned about human expansion, it noted. They fear you will seek retribution for the abandonment. Evelyn watched an eagle, a species that had been thought extinct, soar through the clear sky. They still don't understand us very well, do they? The concept of forgiveness remains statistically undervalued in council decision matrices. The Guardian replied with what Evelyn had come to recognize as its version of dry humor. We haven't forgotten, she said seriously. But Earth has taught us something important these past few years. Holding on to the past too tightly prevents adaptation to the future. The AI was silent for a moment, processing, analyzing. The predecessors would be satisfied with their choice of sanctuary world. Below them, children played in fields of wildflowers that had evolved to neutralize remaining soil contaminants. In laboratories around the world, scientists studied the predecessor technology not to dominate but to understand harmonious existence. In orbit, the first new Earth vessels prepared to rejoin galactic society, not as refugees but as equals. Earth was never dead, Evelyn said softly. It was just waiting for us to remember how to listen to it. The Guardian's light pulsed in what she had come to recognize as agreement. Indigenous species assessment, upgraded from endangered to thriving. Recommended status, full galactic citizenship with predecessor legacy rights. Evelyn smiled. I think we'll take that one step at a time. We're still learning what it means to be truly at home on our own planet again, as sunset painted the sky in colors not seen on Earth in decades. Evelyn thought about how close they had come to true extinction, not from the environmental collapse alone, but from the surrender to hopelessness. The predecessor technology had given them the tools for recovery, but humanity's refusal to accept abandonment had been the true key. Earth lived again, changed, adapted, but unmistakably alive. And humanity had changed with it, finding a new definition of habitation in a universe that had nearly left them behind. Some nights, when she looked up at the stars, now visible through the cleared atmosphere, Evelyn wondered about the predecessors who had planned so far ahead for this moment. Had they faced their own existential challenges? Had they, too, needed to redefine what it meant to inhabit a changing world? Perhaps someday they would find those answers among the stars. For now, it was enough that Earth, once declared dead by the galaxy, had found its voice again. And this time, the universe would listen.